Good morning, Melee. It's been a few weeks since I've last seen you all. Happy New Year. My name is Kevin Dhir, your host for the Good Morning Melee show. Today, I'll be bringing you the schedule for the Galint Melee Open and a little bit about this event and our organization, Galint Gaming. I'm glad you could join us bright and early at 11:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. if you're on the East Coast. We run on Melee player time around here, but seriously, I don't expect anyone lining up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning to lose to my Jigglypuff, so I hope you enjoyed getting to sleep in and warm up. At the end of this episode, I'll be hosting a live interview with a very special guest. Hint, he's a legendary event organizer who recently led one of the coolest community initiatives I've ever seen. Hopefully, you've had the chance to warm up on the ladder, which has been running since 10 o'clock a.m. and will go until 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific time today and tomorrow. The matchmaking ladder, available to all registered attendees of the event through Smash UG, offers competitive best-of-3 sets within your region with the click of a button. In addition to bragging rights and sick training practice, the ladder offers you a chance to gain points and level up on a leaderboard. The top 3 of each leaderboard on the West Coast and the East Coast will be getting some moolah, $100, $50, and $30 Canadian respectively. The singles bracket will be starting at 12 o'clock p.m. today, just after Good Morning Melee. We'll be kicking off things with some East Coast pools. The tournament up until top 16 will be broadcast on BTS Smash as well as Galint Gaming. Please tune into both, as we'll have high-level matches and commentary on both channels. Our first wave will be commentated by Vish and Chillin, as well as Seal and Wang Sheng. There'll be a small overlap before East Coast pools wrap up at 4 p.m, as we'll be starting West Coast pools at 3 o'clock p.m. And these will be commentated by Lovage and Zoo, Radar, and Shakespeare. Pools will finish off at around 7 o'clock p.m, and that's all for the Melee singles bracket for today. The ladder will continue until 8 o'clock p.m. However, don't go away. We've got an insane set of show matches planned for Saturday night, tonight. First on the slate, we've got a live match coming all the way from across the sea in the suburbs of Tokyo, Japan. The world's best Yoshi, Vici Bootcamp Red Bull Amza will face off against top-notch controllers Sunshike. If you haven't faced off or heard about these players before, you're in for a treat. Neither of them have had the chance to compete internationally for a minute due to COVID and unfortunate circumstances preventing them from streaming Slippy. They have, however, been able to stay on top of their game, practicing regularly with one another and competing locally when safe to do so. Shunsuke and Amsa live just across the street from each other, so it's perfect. Amsa was a top 10 threat globally prior to the COVID era, ranked 7th in the world on the 2019 Melee PGR. His opponent Shunsuke is able to go even with him in friendlies. Shunsuke also won Japan's most recent in-person tournament, featuring over 80 attendees, Battle Gateway 31, back in November 2020. After their match, myself and Toph will be having a short conversation with them, interviewing them about their scene as well as their love of Melee. Following that show match, we'll be having Mango facing off against Zane in a best-of-3 Iron Man. They'll be playing 2 or 3 mini Iron Man games, where they can choose 3 different characters to face off against one another. Between games, they're allowed to change up their roster if they'd like to. I'm super curious to see who they decide to pick, and how the counter-pick war plays out. The match will start at approximately 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. On Sunday, we'll start the day off at noon with the top 64 bracket. This will continue to be region locked until top 16. Our first commentary lineup of the day is again Vish and Chillin, as well as Zane and Zoo. From top 16 on, we'll be entirely on BTS Smash, and we'll kick it off with Blur and Mango on the mic. Top 8 will start at approximately 5 p.m. and will feature Toph and Lovage closing out the show. Did I mention? All of top 128 is going to be best of 5. We've got so much in store for you these next 2 days, and I'm hyped. I've got just a little bit more I want to tell you about before we kick off the day with an interview. What even is Galint Gaming? Is it a ledge dashing competition? Well, Galint Gaming is an organization I've been working on for these past few months during COVID as an outlet for all my Melee energy and my TOing passion. I love the community and have been organizing events for the past 7 or so years in the Pacific Northwest. Most notably, I run the Battle of BC event series, whose 4th iteration I had to unfortunately cancel back in June. Galint will continue to organize online events throughout this year and hopefully be back with some top-tier in-person events when it's safe to do so. With the Galint Melee Open series, I'm hoping to focus on ensuring attendees and viewers alike have a dope time and feel connected to the event, even though it is online. Hopefully, we've got that already happening for you and will continue to deliver an amazing experience this weekend. I'm always open to suggestions and feedback, so please hit me up on Twitter at Reindeer or, reach out to me in whatever way you want to. I'm always happy to chat. We intend to also support other organizations and brands in running their events in the future, so don't be shy. Speaking of team, I saved the best bit for last. I want to give a huge shout out to the amazing people who make this event happen, behind the scenes. Specifically for this event, I want to shout out Paul and Kumpy for their amazing work designing and leading everything creative to do with the event. Matt also had a lot of fun leading our Twitter. Jade, also known as They Them, absolutely killed it on this event's bracket and Discord. Of course, you wouldn't be watching me say all this without the pillars of this event, the broadcast crew. Shoutouts to Juna, Zarango, Flashburn, and Nikki for leading the broadcast effort. Alright, I've said enough. Now let's get the show rolling. The Galint Melee Open is officially opened. Thanks for joining me on the couch, and now let's head over to a live interview with the one and only MattDotZeb.
Even was, and yeah.
Yeah, the 5 days of Melee was a 5 straight day broadcast raising money for COVID-19 or to fight COVID-19 to work with Direct Relief specifically. It was on the BTS channel, right sandwiched between the Metagame documentary release and the LACS 3. So for fans of the community, there was just 10 straight days of Melee content, which was super cool. And yeah, we ended up raising 60K over to Direct Relief, which is great. It was a 2-week runway into the project, a very, very heavy passion project by many, many people that just sort of exploded and was just a ball of energy for a solid couple of weeks there. It was a blast.
No doubt. So how did it come to be, man? How did you come up with the idea? Like, what really prompted you to be like, I'm going to do something super crazy, and you really did something super crazy?
Well, it was so I came up with the idea, like, kind of the day, I guess, of the cease and desist, where, like, my mind started going into, like, I want to do something. Primarily, I think it was prompted by watching Juggle Guy, Toph, and Scar talking with Ludwig on his stream the day of, because Lud had them on, and they all had great conversations. In particular, I remember Scar saying that the community really needs like something to rally around. It really needs like almost like a hub in a sense, and just something to target. So my mind started sort of swimming with some different ideas, and I've been watching. And I'm sure a lot of us have been watching a lot more Twitch this year, watching a lot more content creators. And in particular, obviously watched a ton of Ludwig. I don't think I've missed a daily upload in like 16 months or something. But he's done a bunch of really creative stuff and has shown that it's actually not as hard as you might think to put together creative and engaging content. Because any content you're making, effectively, other people have already done in some form or another. So I was starting to think of like, well, can we do a sort of content approach to Melee? Um, and so the Saturday after, the cease and desist, I think was a Thursday. So the Saturday after, I just had stuff, more formed in my mind and took the time to write it all down. I brought it to a handful of people, Patty with Alston Melee. I brought it to Juna, and I brought it to Raging Cherry to get all their various different points of feedback, and sort of sat on it for like a week. Like, do you ever want to buy something? You ever want to like buy something that's like really expensive, and you're like, well, okay, let me think about it for a few days. So instead of an impulse buy, it was like kind of like an impulse project is how I was thinking of it.
Mhm.
So I was like, I'm gonna give it a few days, kind of wait, and then finally on Sunday the 29th, I think it was Sunday the 29th, we November 29th, brought it to Juna again, brought it to Walt, and then the Monday following, we just kicked it all off. We just started running with it.
That's crazy, man. How did it manage to happen in such a short period of time? Like 2 weeks is absolutely insane, and I think like it's hard for people to even appreciate just how crazy the fact that all of this came together in 2 weeks. 108 hours or something of content was
Yeah.
put together in those 2 weeks. How did it happen? Like, what was the like happy recipe that made this work, or the
Hmm.
magical recipe, or from your perspective at least? Because I've thought about it for sure.
Well, I mean, I think it was very heavily at the right time.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people were and still are very upset. Sort of want to do things to stick it to the man
Mhm.
of Nintendo, and yeah, I think everybody was on the same sort of chord, I guess. So once we're saying we're going to do this big project, we are we already have a team. I guess like we had that small core team of me, Walt, and June at the very start, but that eventually, I think day one, like the Monday right there, had maybe like 10 other people join the Discord, and we started talking about it more. But we already at that point had our first iteration of a schedule, because that was part of my draft, was just like a full on what is the actual schedule. So that was already sort of ready. So we were just making additional tweaks to that, gathering more feedback. Um, Starting to think about what we do as far as teasers and trailers. I remember the Tuesday after, I think it was Radar, who's like, "So is this actually happening?" I'm like, "Well, if we work on it like it's gonna happen, it'll probably happen." And I think everybody sort of just maintained that attitude when they got in there, and they would see that there's all these other people sort of already taking steps onto it, and they're like, "Oh, this is happening. That's like
Yeah.
they're actually trying to do this. All right, yeah, I'll get in there, sure." Um, and I think in particular, for me, and I assume this goes for a lot of other people, you've kind of been starved for like a group project like this.
Mhm.
A lot of us in the Melee community, at least those of us who aren't solely players, which is a good number of people, frankly,
Mhm.
have fairly collaborative efforts multiple times a year while we are able to attend events. And that just hasn't happened this year. It's just not a thing. I really can say that the 5 days of Melee, even the work leading up to it and the execution of it, were the closest I've felt to running a major since Shine 2019.
Yeah, no
So
doubt.
yeah, I think a lot of people felt drawn to a community group project,
Mhm.
given all the other things that were happening at the time. So I just think it was lightning in a bottle moment. It's what I feel.
Yeah, it was perfect. And it was actually, honestly, I felt the same way about like, I actually felt my TO drive kind of just like fully come back. Like, I
Hmm.
felt it in those moments when I was doing stuff around the event and just being involved in the event, that group feeling of working with a team and a team that's so passionate, right? Like, I really found that like passion breeds passion. And like in those calls that we had during that event, and even the after part, like the call that happened after, you could just really see that everybody there just like loved Melee, loved doing events like this, and it gave people a really good way to get that taste of it again.
Yeah.
Um, what was your favorite part of the 5 days of Melee? Your favorite segment, or a thing that you got to touch, or like,
Hmm.
yeah, what did you enjoy?
As far as my favorite segment, that's tough. Oh,
Or
it's
doesn't
so
have to be your
tough. There's so
favorite, but
many.
one that maybe if
Mm.
somebody hadn't watched the 5 Days of Melee, they can go check it out on YouTube because everything's posted there thanks to JMDH and crew. But
I would say the game shows. Then in that case, the game shows are the best. We made melee themed Jeopardy, Family Feud, and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Those are all up on the Melee on Me YouTube channel and are super super fun episodes. There's 2 Jeopardy, 1 Family Feud. We did it live, so go easy on us. But all the other ones were pre-produced. And there's 4 Millionaire episodes. Those are all on the Melee on Me YouTube channel. I think the CLG block was phenomenal. If anybody is interested in just general mentality, and it doesn't even need to be around Melee, frankly, a lot of their conversations have applicable logic and reasoning for just life, just what you do and other things, and how you apply yourself and how you learn and grow and treat yourself. So I thought that was just phenomenal, and I love CLG. I'm really happy that they agreed to be a part of it. Those 3 are just fantastic. Bobby Essett and PBU. I'm genuinely so happy that they were there. Speedrunning block was really cool. I haven't watched like Melee speedrunning in a while. I haven't watched a live TAS creation before. That
it's
was
so cool, yeah. Like just to know about what goes into them, because you see them on Twitter, you see them on YouTube, and you're like, oh yeah, that's just the TAS thing. So you don't really acknowledge that there's so much skill that actually goes into making something like that. But
yeah.
holy shit.
But I'm totally forgetting other things. But I do want to give shout outs to the sleeper that I actually initially just put on the schedule to fill time, to be perfectly honest, overnight, which is Grand Finals Through Time.
Yep.
That was a huge sleeper segment for me. Because, when I'm originally making the schedule for this, I'm like, all right, probably by midnight, like, we just need to start having filler content. What's a good way to do that? Oh, we'll just do like 3 or 4 hours of grand final sets and just walk it through 2004 or whatever through current day. And that just became so much more enjoyable than I ever expected. It was just like this huge hangout. Like there'd be 800, 1,500 people somewhere like that in chat. Watching these really old Melee sets, watching sets from like 2004 with no commentary and no layout, and people guessing what they're watching. Like, who is this? We ran some polls asking people, like, have you watched these sets before? And it would be over 50% saying, no, I've never seen these, which was really, really cool to me. That there are people who would get exposure to these old, awesome sets of Melee that just haven't before. And it was just fun. We saw the same consistent people in chat every night, just coming back for it. It was the same time slot. We tried to make time slotting very consistent across 5 days of Melee. So if you enjoyed something on one day, then you could tune in on another day around the same time period and get the same type or very similar types of content.
It's dope, man. I really enjoyed it. Let's jump over to a little bit about you now. The 5 Days of Melee was awesome, but you're also someone super awesome who, because tournaments haven't really been happening much this year, and I know you have gone and done some other really cool stuff in other gaming communities. There might be people in our community who aren't really familiar with who MattDotZeb is and why you are such a legend. Do you want to just? I should have done this back at the start, but do you want to just give a quick intro of who you are and like what you do and your place in the community?
Yeah, sure. I'm a Falco player. I've been a part of the community since 2005. I joined in August 05. Started running tournaments the year later. I've been running tournaments ever since. Was New England based for a while, most of my life until 2016. And I've run a bunch of regionals. I've run a lot of tournaments like 256, 512 size, like Bust in particular, you might have heard of.
Mm-hmm.
I ran the Melee games, started that in 2014 and ran that through to 2017. Started with 8 schools in New England. Shout out to UConn, first ever school to sign up for TMG. And that ended up getting like 250 schools in it. That's how we know each other the most. I'm sure we would have encountered each other at some other point in time too. But, we really got to know each other through TMG initially. And I eventually joined. Oh, I'm missing a beat. I formed Big Blue Esports in 2015 with a couple other folks in New England around Boston. Big Blue Esports is the entity responsible for Shine and numerous other regional-sized events around New England. And then in 2016, I joined Smash GG. That's when I left New England, became a traitor to my kind, and was out in SF for a while, Denver for a bit too. And nowadays, I'm down in LA. I'm working over at the Call of Duty League. Actually, just had my 1-year anniversary 3 days ago, which was pretty cool.
Congrats.
And yeah, I do competition operations management for them essentially. You know, and I guess I won't jump too much into that, but I'm basically being paid to pay people to run tournaments.
That is amazing, man. Yeah, it's really cool. Like for me, like as someone who's known you in pretty close proximity over the years, to see you go from uh, solid player to amazing organizer to working professionally in esports is really the dream for a lot of the people involved in the industry or aspiring and up and coming into the industry. So it's really cool to get to hear your story and share your story. One question I have for you is what are the things in terms of your perspective on being a tournament organizer or your motivations that have kind of changed or grown as you've gained experience and gained wisdom? Like, I'm sure when you were first starting to tournament organize back in like '07, '06 or whatnot, when you're running a tournament, the way you thought about it was different than when you thought about, say, 5 days of Melee. Are any of those lessons or thoughts, you know, things you can share or put into words, really?
That's a great question. Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'll just ask you a more
Yeah,
straight.
sorry.
I can ask you a more straight question.
I can't get you something direct
No
like that.
worries, man. But like, what's important to you in a tournament or an event these days? Like, what are the things that you care about the most right now when you're trying to put together an event?
Attendee experience for sure. That's like one of the biggest things. The other thing for me is just scheduling. I guess that's probably one of the things that has changed the most for me through the years is that you can pre-plan your entire tournament, right? Like when I started running tournaments, it's just we're gonna get these setups, we're gonna have these people around, we're just gonna do this thing. And I would loaf around. Plenty of people who attended my events in 2006 through 2008 could tell you how many times Zoso yelled at me to run the tournament instead of play friendlies. But like eventually, just the more and more you kind of work it out, you see that there are consistencies, there are contingencies you can plan for, and you can guarantee a set experience for your attendees based off your pre-planning. So that's a really big one. The other one is just in general, just trying your best to understand that there are just tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of roles that people can do and execute in events, and that's just not something you typically get exposure to when it's just you running a tournament at a local venue. That's something you get exposure to when you actually are starting to step more into the industry or work on these larger types of events, and you see that there are crazy roles out there that people can get slated into. And I use a lot of my eye-opening knowledge from Call of Duty League in particular to help us like put together the 5 days of Melee, like
Yeah.
the approach, I suppose.
I wanted to say that approach that was taken for organizing that event in terms of, specific roles and segment leads and just giving people ownership of categories, as well as just going down the list in terms of like making sure you really do have someone for each of those small roles and a specific person who owns that duty was huge and a huge lesson I took away from that event. And I feel like I've applied to this event as well. I think it's been super cool. As you said, we're now in a position where you can pre-plan pretty much the entire event. With an in-person event, you have a little bit more, uh, room that you need to accommodate for, a lot more uncertainty in terms of circumstances. Things
Yeah.
that can happen in person are a little different. But with an online event, you can really just plan everything out and have everything kind of set up beforehand. So
Yeah. I would
huge
say
takeaway.
one of my big takeaways for any TOs or just people in general in chat is that don't be afraid to delegate and trust heavily. You need to trust people. If you can't trust people, then you can't properly delegate.
Right.
So you need to learn those skills.
That's a huge important skill. I cannot emphasize more. Sweet, man. Well, we're just wrapping up on time here, so I'm just going to ask you the one last question that I've asked pretty much everyone, and I realize it's kind of a crappy question in retrospect, but I started it as a tradition. I'm just gonna keep going with it in
Okay.
terms of the wording. 3 words that capture melee for you.
Falco
For the
forward
first,
smash.
sorry,
Falco forward smash.
Falco forward smash. Sweet man, as a Jigglypuff player, getting hit by that hurts a lot. So thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you, or what are you up to next?
Yeah, you can hit me up on patreon.com/AlstonMelee, twitch.tv/AlstonMelee, or twitter.com/AlstonMelee. Please check me out. I do a podcast every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We also do YouTube premieres. I'm not part of Alston Melee. I just love those guys. Definitely support them. You can hit me up. I'm DotZeb on Twitter if you want to follow me or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate it. Hope you get to enjoy this weekend as well. Now that you're not in the driver's seat for the event, you can chill back and just watch and enjoy.
Yeah, and good luck to you and the whole team. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, man. Have a great day, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Before I do sign off, I just wanted to give one quick shout out to Hitbox for really helping make this event come possible. They supported our event behind the scenes, and yeah, it's been a huge help. So thank you so much, Hitbox. All right, appreciate it, and we'll head over to the singles bracket. East Coast singles is coming up soon.